You've been lied to about healing from narcissistic abuse. It's not an overnight process, just because the narcissist is no longer in your life. In fact, the hardest part often begins after the relationship ends, when you're left alone with the confusion, the triggers, and the silent echoes of everything you went through. So, how do you know if you're actually moving forward or just stuck in a different place? Let's talk about the 5 clear signs you are not healing after narcissistic abuse. Are you ready for number 1? You blame yourself for everything. If you find yourself replaying moments in your head, whispering phrases like, "Maybe I overreacted," or "If only I hadn't said that," then you're stuck in a cycle of self-blame that isn't your burden to carry. Narcissistic abuse conditions you to doubt your reality. It's not just manipulation, it's psychological warfare. According to clinical psychologist Ramani Durvasula, expert in narcissism, the narcissist thrives on shifting blame. It keeps them in control, and it keeps you in guilt. So, when you're still blaming yourself, even after the relationship is over, it means the narcissist's voice is still louder than your own. Healing hasn't truly begun until you start trusting yourself again. You're not too sensitive, and you didn't make them act that way. That's gaslighting talking, not truth. You've probably been walking on emotional eggshells for so long that guilt feels familiar. However, as trauma expert Pete Walker puts it in his book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, self-blame is the child's magical belief that if they are the problem, they can also be the solution. It gave you a sense of control then, but now it's just keeping you stuck. Healing starts when you shift the question from, "What did I do wrong?" to, "Why did I believe it was always my fault?" You didn't deserve that pain, and you sure don't deserve to carry it alone anymore. Let's talk about number 2. You minimize what happened. You might catch yourself brushing it off, saying, "Everyone has bad relationships," or "They weren't always awful." However, minimizing what happened is your mind's way of trying to protect you from pain you haven't fully processed yet. It's a trauma response, not a sign of strength. Dr. Thema Bryant, a licensed psychologist and trauma expert, once said, "Minimization is often the mind's attempt to stay functional in the face of dysfunction." So, when you laugh about how your ex screamed at you in public, you're not healing, you're hiding. And deep down, you know the weight of what you went through hasn't gone anywhere. Telling yourself it wasn't abuse because there were good times is like ignoring a house fire because the living room didn't burn. Abuse doesn't need to be physical or constant to be real. When you downplay it, you silence your own truth, and that slows your healing. Life coach and author Lisa A. Romano put it plainly, "You cannot heal from what you refuse to validate." The moment you stop making excuses for them and start acknowledging your experience is the moment your healing begins to move forward. You deserve to take your pain seriously because what happened to you was that bad. And it mattered. You matter. You shouldn't miss number 3. You feel uncomfortable in peace. Does calm feel scary to you, even when it's what you've always said you wanted? When someone treats you kindly or a relationship feels calm and safe, Do you catch yourself feeling tense or restless, like something bad is about to happen? That's not because peace is boring, but because your nervous system has gotten used to chaos. After narcissistic abuse, your body becomes wired to expect drama, tension, and emotional highs and lows. Dr. Nicole LePera, also known as the holistic psychologist, explains it like this. We confuse intensity with love when we grew up in environments where love was mixed with pain. So when things are finally stable, your brain doesn't recognize it as so, but sees it as unfamiliar and therefore dangerous. This craving for drama or emotional roller coasters isn't about who you are, but about what you've had to endure. You were trained to live on edge, and now your mind and body are trying to adjust, even though they don't know how yet. As trauma therapist Resmaa Menakem puts it in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, the body, not the thinking brain, is where trauma lodges. That itchiness you feel in calm moments is your body waiting for the next blow, even when it's not coming. Healing begins when you stop seeing peace as a red flag and start seeing it as your new normal. It takes time, but the more you sit with it, the more you'll realize that safety doesn't have to feel suspicious. It can feel like home. Are you still up for number 4? You still don't feel like you again. When was the last time you truly felt like you? If you're being honest with yourself, it probably feels like parts of you went missing in that relationship. Your laughter, your confidence, maybe even your sense of purpose. Narcissistic abuse doesn't just hurt your feelings. It chips away at your identity. You spent so long walking on eggshells, trying to be who they needed you to be. And somewhere along the line, you got lost. Dr. Christine Courtois, a trauma psychologist, explains it this way. Chronic interpersonal trauma can erode the sense of self to the point that survivors feel like they no longer know who they are. So, if you're feeling numb, directionless, or disconnected from the person you used to be, that's not weakness. It's a sign your healing is still in progress. It's okay if you can't recognize yourself yet. However, pretending everything is fine or rushing to move on without reconnecting with your true self only delays your healing. Life coach Mastin Kipp once said, "Trauma is not what happens to you. It's what you hold inside in the absence of an empathetic witness." You may not have had someone to validate your pain then, but you can start by showing up for yourself now. Start small. What did you used to love? What made you feel alive? Ask yourself those questions with curiosity, not judgment. You don't have to go back to who you were. You get to become who you were always meant to be. Finally, we're down to number 5. You still feel triggered by their name or certain words. You think you've moved on, and then someone says their name, or you hear that song, or someone uses a phrase they always said, and suddenly you're right back in the thick of it. That wave of anxiety or anger that hits you is a trauma imprint. Your body remembers what your mind is trying to forget. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains, "Trauma is not the story of something that happened back then. It's the current imprint of that pain, horror, and fear living inside." So, if you still flinch at reminders of them, it's not because you're stuck in the past. It's because your nervous system still thinks it's not safe to let go. Healing from narcissistic abuse isn't just about cutting contact, but about reclaiming your emotional space. If their name still feels like a punch in the gut, it means they still have power over your peace. But here's the good news. Triggers are messengers. They're pointing you to the wounds that still need care. Therapist Shannon Thomas, author of Healing from Hidden Abuse, says, "Emotional triggers are not your enemy. They're your invitation to heal." So, the next time something sets you off, try not to shame yourself for it. Instead, ask, what does this reaction need from me right now? With time, the name that once made you freeze will just be another word, and that's how you'll know you've taken your power back. In conclusion, healing isn't about pretending you're okay, but about being honest with where you still hurt. If any of these signs hit home, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human and still in the process. Remember, healing is messy and takes time, so be gentle with yourself along the way. You can find your way back to yourself, one step, one truth, and one deep breath at a time. And when you do, you'll realize just how strong you truly are.